Good morning to you, my wonderful people. A pleasant morning to you. All right, beauties. I somewhat had done a video on what I'm about to talk about in a sense, but I think I want to make it really, I want to bring home or ring home the point, because I realize that a number of Christian marriages are on the rocks. I think studies had shown a few years ago that the divorce rate between the secular and the Christian they are basically one-on-one. You know, maybe a few, like maybe a 0.0 something percentage difference, but the difference, when you really math it out, it comes back to one. It's like when they talk about there are more women than men. Yeah, but the margin is minimal, so it's really 1-to-1, the ratio. So the margin is very low, and all of that. When you encompass all men, whether they're in prison, whether they're not on the straight and narrow, whatever it is, it's still, you know, basically 1-to-1. All right, Christian husbands, church men, many of your wives are not sexually satisfied. They're dissatisfied with your performance. I know sometimes it can be because as a result of a medical condition, maybe erectile dysfunction, perhaps the libido, it is very low. So your sex drive is not strong. And for some reason, there has been a miseducation, not the Lauryn Hills type, but in a sense, I can bring that in. There has been a miseducation, a misinformation, because of a lack of understanding, rightly dividing the word of God, lacking comprehension skills and critical thinking skills as it relates to what the word of God has posited where sex is concerned. Another core issue is that the church seldom, and when I say the church, I don't mean every single church. Yeah, so when I talk about the church, I don't mean every single church. So if your church is different, you know, you're part of the minority, the exception to the rule. But in general, the church, they're afraid to talk about sex. In fact, you have quite a number of people who, when they hear about sex, they think it is demonic, not understanding that it is God who created the sex gene in us. It was God who created that love making, the sex feeling, the sexual desire in us. And as I said on a live yesterday, when you're in the confines of marriage that is honored by God, having sex is like a representation of your intimacy with God. Yes, you're not having sex with God literally, obviously, but it is that true expression of love, you know. So it is like a representation. Whatever it is in heaven, we represent that here on earth, you know, to a large extent. Remember that God said we were made in his likeness and in his image. And what has happened is that the devil has found a way to bring the world's system. Remember when God had said, do not be conformed to this world. It's talking about the world systems, the way how they do their things, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So we should have been conforming the world to our system, because the way of God is usually, it is the right way, not usually, it is the right way. Sex is honorable, you know, the bed is undefiled in the confines of marriage under God. Yes, so it is, you know, under the auspices of God. God created the sex gene. He wanted you to, not just for procreation. So when God said be fruitful and multiply, it is so multidimensional. It is for pleasure, for procreation, and for productivity under the auspices of marriage. And what has happened is that people have been so miseducated because of a lack of knowledge, and they hear something that it is not actually not scriptural, it is not biblical, but it is sinister, it is malevolent, it is demonic. And the enemy has come in and infiltrated the beautiful attribute, I call it, the beautiful creation of sex that God had implanted in every human being. It is an expression of love, intimacy. you know. And as I said, whilst we don't have sex with God, if you understand what I mean, the sex that you have with your husband, wife to husband, husband to wife, is an expression to say, this is a kind of love that brings me to be so vulnerable, to feel so pleasured, to feel so, you know, enamored, to feel good in your arms. But the enemy has found a way to make sex seem sinful, even under the auspices of marriage. I've heard non-Christian people say that a church could never tell them anything about sex. One woman I heard on her night of consummation after marriage got into what Jamaicans calls into spirit, getting in a frenzy, because she thought she was doing something sinful. This is after the wedding ceremony. And, you know, needless to say, she had to get some counseling. Men, your wives are not satisfied. You're not taking them over the threshold. They're not reaching their high point. They're not climaxing. They're not coming. For those who may not understand some of the words. So while 10 out of 10 times, more than likely, you come because of the nature of your testicles and your genital, your penis, you know, the stimulation, the constant stimulation will force something to come out. It doesn't happen for the woman. Whilst she may enjoy the process of the sexual encounter, so because of the penis touching on the vulva and inserted right and touching on the vagina and the clitoris, she's just enjoying the process of it momentarily. But she is not taken to 100%. It stops at 50. And the 50 is a process, simply because you have not understood foreplay. You have not understood how to get into the mind of your wife, so that before you even touch her physically in that sense, you have romanced her to that point. You come home with your dirty body. You don't help her to clean. You don't do things for her. You don't surprise her with, you know, some women like perfume, some like chocolate, some like roses, some want the money to go and deal with some things. You know that the day before she needed some help with the chores, with the cooking, whatever it is. Now she's not expecting you to be as domesticated as she is. If it is that you're not that way, you hire a helper, you know, ever so often or every now and then, or moderately seldom, whatever it is, so that, you know, you have more time with her. Remember, Paul said, the body of your wife belongs to you as a husband, and similarly, husbands, your bodies belong to your wives. So you should make it you should make her life so easy that every time you want it, she is saying, come honey, without you even asking. Sometimes she say, honey bunny, come, let us express our love in this way. Let's make love. Let's romance each other. I want to feel your penis in my vagina this evening, tonight, this morning, this afternoon, whatever time of day. And remember, I'm speaking within the confines of marriage. People will do whatever they want to do outside of that. But the wives are not being satisfied because you're not getting to know your wife's body. You're not in tune with it. There is no symbiotic relationship between your penis and her vagina. You're just inserting, and then you release, and then you pull out, and then you're gone to sleep, snoring away. Because that pressure is off and you can't go again. You don't even understand that her body can go multiple times. And that is why some people say it's best to let her climax before you do. Since it is that you can only do one and done for the moment. Battering, stabbing, and digging is not, and plowing arduously it's not love making. It's not just that. There are moments that you may want it hard. There are moments you just wanted to take it easy, give her nice and soft. But you have to get into the mind of your wives. If you have an issue physically, then you know you need to seek help. Let go the ego. Talk to your wife. Ask her what it is that she likes. What tickles her fancy? What does she like? What does she like? Don't assume that this is what she likes. I'm putting my penis in her vagina, so she must like that. No. It is more than that. Sex for you is different, you know, as sex for women. Totally different. Yes, both parties, you know, have the sex gene in their bodies, but the process of it, you know, and the leading up to it is different for women. Get to know your wives. Ask her what it is that she likes. Don't be mean and stingy, and don't be egotistical, arrogant, and proud. Humble be vulnerable so she can be vulnerable to you, so that you can save your marriages, and so that you can actually reach the climatic point at least one time in the marriage. Guys, you know what to do. Read TikTok and YouTube, subscribe.